So hello everyone, welcome to the Covenant of Mayors webinar entitled Integrated Home Renovation Services, How to Set Them Up and Get EU Funding Support on Top. My name is Jana Cicmanova and I'm a project manager from Energy Cities, the European Association of Cities in Energy Transition, and also the Covenant of Mayors office. I will briefly introduce the webinar and the speakers who joined us today. The first speaker will be Christophe Milan, the project officer from EASME, who will tell you a little bit more about the concept of integrated home renovation services and the one-stop shops. And we'll also tell you how the Horizon 2020 program, through the Energy Efficiency Priority number 2, can support cities, regions, and other organizations in creating such integrated home renovation services and one-stop shops on your territories. After his presentation, we will have a very specific example, and very inspirational example as well, of a one-stop shop which is called Rijmarkt, that has been set up in the Netherlands in 6 cities. And this example will be presented by our guest, Marco van Dalfsen, advisor from KAW organization, also representing Rijmarkt. I will not spend too much time on presenting the home renovation concept because our speakers are really experienced in this. They are working every day in the one-stop shop in Rijmarkt or on the priority as Christophe. So I will give them the floor. I would like to say that we will let them speak, both of them, because they have many things to say, and then only at the end, the last 20 minutes or half an hour, we will have the question and answer session where you will be able to ask questions through the chat window. So I think all of you know how to use the chat. You can write your questions during the presentations or at the end to the chat window. Your microphones will not be activated because it's not technically possible. Only speakers can speak, but don't hesitate to use chat throughout the whole webinar. So after this brief introduction, I would like to give the floor to Christophe, who will start his presentation now. Thank you, Christophe.
Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, very well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jana. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to the participant for this discussion around integrated home renovation services, which is open this year again after last year. It is actually the last year it is open, so if you're interested in this topic, now it's a good time to look at it and potentially think of a potential approach for you. So just to start with, just some elements of context to remind that building represent 40% of our energy consumption in the EU and 36% of our greenhouse gases emissions. Only very few percentage of the stock is renovated each year, and the European Commission conducted an analysis in preparation for the revision of an energy efficiency directive, estimated that around 214 billion euros should be invested each year in housing in order to reach the 2030 EU target. So at EU level, 2014 billion. And when you compare to the amount of investment that is currently done in the housing sector, that means that we need to find 87 additional billion every year for 10 years before 2030, just to reach our 2030 target. So the amount of investment to mobilize is quite large, and most of the financial burden will be carried out by the private sectors and in housing by households. For the moment, there is clearly a lack of attractive financing products on the market, adapted to energy efficiency investment, which requires long-term perspective, long-term financial products. There are a number of subsidies existing depending on the local context mostly, but clearly to reach the amount of investment that we require at the EU level, the subsidies will not be enough and not at scale to reach the amount of investment. And in many cases also the subsidy schemes has inherent flaws and can be perceived as cumbersome. And in any case, even if the subsidy exists, it can improve the profitability of a given investment, but you will still have to find a solution for the whole investment because the subsidy will be received after the investment is done, probably with proof of investment. And that means that you need to still have the possibility to invest to start with. So all the measures should find a way to be pre-financed. If we deal with the residential sectors, home renovation is particularly complex, and there is clearly a lack of skills to set up, implement, and finance ambitious projects. It's complicated, and there is little incentive for capacity buildings. You may do a refurbishment once or two times in your life, maybe three, but not much more. And there is clearly not a very good incentive to become an expert in energy retrofits if you do this only once. The complexity is already quite high in individual housing, but it increases when you face multiple ownerships in condominium, for example, or when you face energy poverty. We do an analogy with a wedding planner. A wedding will be for the two persons involved a single logically connected project, and yet it involves a large number of non-coordinated actors. So for you, it's clear it's your wedding, but you still have to deal with a caterer, with public authorities, with a travel agency, with hotels, a number of people that are clearly not connected, even though for you it's the same single project. Again, there is little incentive for capacity building. You don't need to become an expert in weddings. And so there is a value in coordinating an integrated offer, so make it simple for the two persons involved so they can actually enjoy their wedding. So what we want to do with this topic on integrated home renovation services is somehow to create this role of wedding planner for home renovation, creates this so-called one-stop shop. So it can be created from scratch, but it can be also expanded from current services that are already operational. It can also be replicated from elsewhere. So if you find interesting initiatives that do not exist in your local market, then you can also just copy what has been done elsewhere and try to implement in your local context. So we need to develop some kind of single entry point to cover the whole customer journey. So have a kind of customer approach to homeowners and make it as simple as possible for them to take action in home renovation, including the provision of finance. So maybe you will not in your services have your own standalone financing service, but you still need to consider the financing of the investment. So either by facilitating access to existing subsidies, facilitating access to financial institution, and possibly to have by developing, for example, partnerships with banks. On the other side, you should also work with your local professionals in order to structure their offer and facilitate consortium, facilitate more comprehensive range of services in order to address final customers and facilitate the access of your professional to your local customers. So if I go a little bit more into details of what could be understood under the integrated home renovation services, it's not only about integrating the very fragmented offer for renovation services, but also, and maybe primarily, to take into account and address the very fragmented nature of the demand for renovation. Because indeed, renovations will take place at the intersections of different factors and motivation that are not necessarily correlated and even sometimes in contradiction. First of all, you need to find the right building. So by this, I mean a building where an investment would make sense. You would, for example, look at the energy consumptions of the building, the type of energy efficiency actions you can implement, their costs. You will conduct a cost-benefit analysis and decide on the measures to implement. So most efforts are currently given in this aspect of things, with the illusion that if you explain well and long enough, renovations will take place. But this is overlooking other aspects of reality that should also be considered, especially when you deal with the residential sector. First of all, you should also consider temporality as a very important factor, because individuals are not always ready for action, and in fact, there are very few moments when they are ready to take action. So if you look at the complex and cumbersome process of home renovation, your window of opportunity is actually quite small, and especially if you want to go for a deep refurbishment. It is absolutely crucial to identify and address homeowners at the acquisition stage, because you know they will be inclined to change a number of things before they move in. You may also address homeowners when the family grows and they need to rearrange the house, or you can also maybe intervene when the children move out and go somewhere else. There are a few more moments in life when individuals are willing to engage in large interventions in their homes, especially for the most economically comfortable, but there are actually very few opportunities to address homeowners. In addition to that, you also, not only the owner has to own a building that is objectively adequate for refurbishment, but he also has to be subjectively convinced that the building shall be refurbished. And there is often a big gap between the concrete characteristics and performance of a building and how it is perceived by its owner. You can see that, for example, in a number of surveys, or when you ask a professional real estate agent and a homeowner to give a price to a home, and you see quite a big gap in appreciations. And even if the owner is convinced that the building needs refurbishment, he also needs to be convinced that it is the first priority. And again, there is often a big gap between importance that is given to environment and the importance of mitigating climate change in the discussion, and the priorities that is effectively given to concrete action at the individual and even collective level. And finally, the owner will need to have the capacity to invest and need to find adapted financial products on the market in order to concretely implement a refurbishment. I briefly mentioned it earlier. So all in all, we're forced to admit that only very few energy efficiency renovation effectively take place, or at least very few of the comprehensive deep energy retrofits we are looking for. As I said before, most of the effort will currently focus on increasing the size of adequate buildings for renovations. For example, by providing public subsidies to improve the cost-benefit analysis of energy efficiency measures, or by providing information and guidance on the relevant measures and existing support schemes. But this is clearly not enough, and this has still a limited impact on the market. And by this, I'm referring to the amount of investment needed that I mentioned in my previous slide. More recently, there are several efforts to develop new financing schemes adapted and dedicated to energy efficiency. So, for example, a dedicated credit line, subsidized loans, or a guarantee fund. But again, it's probably not enough still to reach our targets. So all of the previous initiative won't have enough impact as long as we don't work simultaneously on aligning the motivations of homeowners and make sure you address them at the moment they are effectively inclined to take action. So this on the demand side, but if you look at the offer side, we can also see that there are clearly a large number of factors already active on home renovation. But the type of services that are provided are again fragmented, and you will have difficulties to go through all the way of home renovation, so cover all the different aspects of your customer journey. If you look at craftsmen, installers, they will be very good at renovation, but they will probably not be able to give you a full picture of your renovation project. They will be specialized in their specific craft, and they will give you a proposal and intervention on their specific specialty, and will not be able to give a wide picture. You will have maybe a wider picture with general contractors and cooperative, but they will probably not be able to cover the financing aspect, or not be able to also conduct all marketing activities necessary to actually reach and motivate the homeowners. You will have maybe a better preliminary advices from architects or engineers, and by engineers I mean, for example, the ones that will be able to conduct energy surveys in your and diagnosis and propose you potential energy efficiency measures. But again, they will probably not be able to do the actual renovation. They will give you advice, but not the full renovation, or they will not be able to provide you with financing. Hardware stores, brokers, they are actually quite active now on energy efficiency, proposing their products, and they have quite a huge marketing capacity to promote their energy efficient products, but they are mainly sellers of this product and not installers, and again not necessarily they have a financing offer to propose. Energy utilities are also active, but mainly providing guidance and advices on energy efficiency measures. Banks, they are specialists and excellent on providing financing services, but they are not covering the rest of the renovation process. And at last, you have publicly funded advisors, so the one-stop shops currently operating and providing advices on the types of measures that you could be implementing, or providing advices on the kind of subsidies that you could get, but they are not providing the actual refurbishment nor the financing. So the idea is to develop integrated home renovation services to better cover the full customer journey and provide a full range of services to make it as simple as possible for homeowners. And you have many ways you can do this, and that's what we expect from your proposal. You should try to cover as much as possible of this customer journey by providing solutions. You can provide solution on your own, but you can also develop some kind of partnerships or some kind of subcontracting to cover the full customer journey. So I take an example. You can develop your own offer, providing preliminary advices, financing plan, providing also follow-up and quality insurance. But the actual renovation will be subcontracted to craftsmen and installer. The actual financing will be facilitated. Your own way, in your own context that makes sense and facilitate the life of homeowners and ultimately trigger more renovations. Beyond the reduction of energy bills. So they also want to integrate element of comfort, quality of life, health. So try to work on the actual motivation of homeowners and propose the services that make sense for the homeowners and not only for the public authorities. So they want to develop a homeowner-centric, service-oriented model that will be developed and tested in 3 countries, so in France, in Ireland, and Spain. But working on potential replication, so they will also work a lot on improving their offer and make sense of this, so it can be replicated elsewhere in Europe. And here, the target would be to trigger 335 million euros of investment in home renovation within the first 5 years. I will stop here, and obviously I will also take time later to answer your questions. But just some general guidance on what to do when developing your proposal. What we really want to see is a very adequate analysis of your market needs and barriers to overcome. So there are a number of general market needs and barriers that I've briefly mentioned here. You do have a number of specificities in your context, and we want to see in your proposal a very clear analysis of where you are concretely in your concrete local market. So, because there is a specificity in this topic, which is that you can propose develop a proposal on your own. So a proposal by one single legal entity in one single country is eligible. So it's a difference with other topics in Horizon 2020. You don't need a consortium with three different entities from three different countries. You can develop an offer on your own, as long as it makes sense in your local market. So that also means that in many cases, it makes sense to develop a partnership, but a local partnership. So have on board all the required stakeholders in your market to make sense in your local context. Also, innovations will be addressed in your local market. So we will not look at innovation in general terms. As I said before, just copying something that is already existing elsewhere is eligible and potentially interesting. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You need to make sense in your local market. So explain very well where is your starting point. Explain also what you understand from the state of the art, and what is your concept. What are you proposing, and how does it make sense concretely locally. It needs to, as I said, a good idea is not enough. So a good idea which is not clearly demonstrated in your local context and how it is applicable in your context is not enough. Engage market actors. Propose something that probably is strong enough at the proposal level, either by the consortium that is presented and showing that you have all the required skills to develop the action, to implement the action. Also don't hesitate to provide letters of support from the stakeholders that are not necessarily crucial for actual implementation, but at a later stage will be needed to support your initiative. And by this, I especially think of financial institutions, which may be difficult to get in the consortium, but clearly should be integrated somehow in your universe. And also what we want is that the services are operational by the end of the project, but are still operational after the project. So once the subsidies is given and do not exist anymore, we want the solution to still work and to have a long duration and provide long time solutions to your local homeowners. Here I give a number of further resources. First of all, the topic description, which in the end is the only actual document you should always refer to, because it is where you have the exact condition for this topic. Frequently asked questions, you have a number of these for home renovation and some clarification that may be useful. The online manual is also useful to understand how to cope with an Horizon 2020 project. We recorded and put online on YouTube a specific webinar, so you can find more information on this topic going through this link in YouTube. We organize another webinar on the 13th of April, so next week, and you can register here using the link. And then I also mentioned the Info Day, the ACI Forum webpage, which is a series of events we organize, and where you can find 2 webinars where we showcase some examples of potential intervention in home renovation. Among these, we have actually a presentation from Reimart, so you will feel at home. And then last but not least, I will answer your question after this discussion. But if you do not wish to intervene now, or if you have question later on, you can always send an email to this functional mailbox. He asked me energy, where I will receive your answer and provide a written. I will receive your question and provide an answer. So feel free to ask. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Christophe. And now I would like to give the floor to Marco, who is representing Rijmark and KW organization in the Netherlands, and who is also the partner of the European Innovate project that was mentioned by Christophe. So if you're looking for more information about Innovate, he can also tell you more about it. So Marco, if you like, you can give the vision to all participants of how this one-stop shop could look like.
Thank you. And thank you, Christophe, for the clear explanation. My name is Marco van Dalsen, and as stated before, I work at Rijmarkt, and that's our shop, the convenience store for sustainable living. And it's a one-stop shop concept. We help out homeowners as much as we can. We are a broker between supply and demand, and we not only sell stuff like insulations and solar panels, but we also do marketing, product development, and customer care, the lot. Because we see that suppliers, that is the traditional market, is not capable of doing so. Christophe was telling about it with those nice lines and dots about all the different rules. We take care of most of the rules. We see that suppliers are not capable of doing so. For them, it's mostly all about technique and specifications, and that's not the world our customers live in. Because complaints, they are never about the product, they're always about the process. You were too late, you didn't call back, our house is dirty, and that's why we innovate on things like customer journeys and customer experiences. We also help our customers with access to grants and to financial schemes. But on this part, we must improve our proposition and our business drastically. We do not install products ourselves. We have subcontractors, but we provide our customers with one guaranteed product. So we take over all the obligations of our subcontractors. We are a startup since 2015 and in business at 6 locations in the Netherlands. And we have 30 employees, 15 at headquarters and 15 in the local branches. So every local branch has approximately 3 people in the shop. And our sales volume is currently 20 million euros. We earn money by selling energy efficiency retrofits, and we get a kickback fee of 10% by our suppliers. We don't make any profit yet, and that's why we are still supported by local governments. I will come back on that later. In 2020, we will have a sustainable business case. We need 500 paying customers per shop to get there. And at that point, we will have a sales volume of approximately 25 million a year. The Netherlands needs 200,000 retrofits a year. So we would count for only 2%. To give you a bit of visibility, we are an actual store. And these are pictures of our shop in the town of Enschede. This shop we share with a state agent, and that's a really good cooperation. I'm not going to tell about it right now, but we put a lot of effort in working together with state agents because of what Christophe is talking about the right time. You not only need to have a good proposal and good financing scheme, but most important, the owner will have to have the good time to receive the proposal. And most of the time, that's the time he is moving towards another house. We have a shop, but of course, customers may choose. We are also easily accessible online. And you can choose for personal care in the shop. Since we opened our first shop in 2015, we helped 15,000 homeowners in their customer journey towards a sustainable house. And 2,500 of them are paying customers. They invested in their house. So that's to provide you with an honest story, and that's only 15% of the contacts. So a lot of other people go to other contractors, are doing it by themselves, and of course our goal is to upgrade it towards 20-25%. Anyhow, we estimate that at this moment a maximum of 5% of our customers uses a financial scheme. So all the other people are buying it by themselves. Rijnmarkt is more than a shop, more than a sales organization where products are sold and which meet a demand or a desire. We go further than that. We need to go further than that because desire needs to be excited, awakened, and to focus our marketing and communication, because that's what you need. We do market research, choose focus groups, etc. And we have a lot of services and tools to create attention, interest, and desire. For example, we have an interactive energy check in which you enter your zip code and house number, and the tool recognizes your home, its deep dimensions, its age, and the amount of people living there. And it presents a benchmark of the energy consumption with households exactly like you and with your neighbors. And that's one example of one of our tools, and we also have online energy advice tools. And with all of these services, we send a report. So we can always ask you later, what have you done with it and how can I help you further? So the services are not only visible on a web page, we send it to you in your email. And our newest tool is a photo application. You upload 5 photos of your house and you receive an offer, a quote for energy efficiency, like insulation and solar panels, within an hour. But the best way to get in contact with customers is our pop-up store. We frequently open up a house where we delivered our goods. 'Cause seeing is believing. But to continue on the functions of our one-stop shop, we also innovate in the back office with supply chain development and product development. Here you see a picture of our product developer talking with our suppliers. More than having to deliver good products, they have to deliver on customer experience. Almost 75% of our suppliers fail to meet our standards. So there are a lot of good buys in our business. And if I may give one advice to you, when you're building up a one-stop shop, make sure you have good selection criteria with your suppliers. Because 75% is way too high. We started out as a shop for solely energy efficiency and mainly energy improvement packages consisting of everything from insulation products to solar panels. But lately we also offer energy neutral renovation. And there was one question on forehand by Gonzalo Esteban Lopez, and he asked a question, how to include total insulation refurbishment, because I can't see where Gonzalo is living, but he was telling about the low return on investment of insulation. Well, in the Netherlands, it's the different situation. Insulation is the highest return on investment, and things like solar heaters are the lowest. But to get back to the question, we provide all these products, and all these products are also financeable for approximately 2.5% for 50 years, but that's public funds. There are also private funds with also offer finance for home improvement. These have the same interest rates, but you have like extra costs, and therefore private financial schemes are less used, and only when you rehouse, when you move from one house to another. But yeah, we deliver all the products. All the products are financeable, and of course there is always room for improvement in financial schemes. But the situation in the Netherlands is different than in the country of Gonzalo. So my answer will probably not totally satisfy the question, but we can later talk about it. All right. Lately, we shift more towards propositions that are more based on the true needs of people. I want to live in a bigger house, or in a more beautiful house, or I want to live longer in my house. Like this veranda, which is also designed to lower your energy consumption. Or living room makeovers, which consist of shifting insulation panels. They bring dynamics in a house and a new look to your house. Now you can even sit on your radiators. And we believe that our shift towards these kind of products will help us sell more energy efficiency. Good to know. Christoph mentioned the word tailor-made, is that we don't design things tailor-made. We only design our standardized products, like all products in a convenience store, like shoes or suits. And more we sell products as small, medium and large. Houses are not that unique as we all think, people are. So our statement is we don't need more tailors, but we need suit supplies. You know, the convenience stores where you can buy only a limited amount of suits. And all these functions together make Rijnmarkt. But let's shift towards the consumer perspective. These are the services of a regular one-stop shop in the eyes of a homeowner. There's a lot to read, to listen to consider, to choose, even if you have one contact. Services and information, especially about finance, are abracadabra. And ask yourself the question, can you explain your local financial scheme to your family at dinner? And the answer is probably no. And that is why we reshape all our services and information so it suits the customer journey. And this is a visualization of our services from a consumer perspective. People are asking, am I spending too much energy? Well, we provide insight with the energy check I told you about. But we also provide advice. We help choose the right measurements. We help find the financial scheme. And we provide checklists for the implementation. And we provide proof of the products. And we provide a platform on which you can monitor your energy use. But the most important thing is we never give all these services at once. We find out where you are in your decision-making process, in your customer journey, and we give only the information you need for your next step in small, clear bits. And we make a trail that lasts a year, because that's the amount of time a homeowner needs. So we don't talk about finance when somebody is still orientating. And that sounds logical, but look at the most information and websites about energy efficiency, and you see that we want to tell them all we know in one brochure and all on the homepage. And to cope with all these thousands of different customer journeys, we use customer relationship management tools and a back office, which constantly ask only 3 questions. What are you looking for? Why didn't you take the next step? And can I help you? And the action is always on our side. Our current biggest challenge is shifting our organization from a one-stop shop which talks about costs to a shop that talks about monthly cost. This product costs 70,000 euros, and we have to shift towards 150 euros a month. That takes time to get our organization there, but if we succeed in that, we will have a lot more customers than now, and way more customers than the current 5% would choose for a final solution. Because people want to lend money, because they want to use their savings for, well, things like holidays and other stuff. That was part of the presentation about Rijnmard itself, about what we do. And now a short piece about how we got there with our local governments. This is the local context of a lot of municipalities, a lot of different partners, strong ones, weak ones. And before you would enter this proposal, you have to make the choices as a government on how to shape a one-stop shop, with who, in what kind of concepts. And the Rijnmard works with 4 local business model types. The last 3, of the last 2, I won't talk about it because they were, there we have one-stop shops initiated by a contest. And although we were happy with the 75,000 euros, we found out that that is way not enough to really get a shop started. So the good examples are the first 2. In Groningen, we were an independent energy desk for the municipal for approximately 4 years. And we found out that people did not choose providers because they had too much choice. And but then we had 4 years of experience to show the local government that providing a platform with all your local providers does not have any effect. So at that moment we choose to start up a public-private participation in which we work now for 3 years, and this year will be the last, in which the municipal funds us with money as their preferred one-stop shop supplier in their municipal. And that way we'll get to the break-even point. And in Enschede, we were granted renovations by social housing organizations. So we have a stable budget from these organizations, and that way we have financial room to focus on the private sector. So these are just 2 business model examples. This could be a process for forming a local one-stop shop in your hometown. Always start with organizing your stakeholders and start the conversation and pilot, because you'll have to find out how good you can trust the partners and who is working with who on a stable basis. Because, well, the one-stop shop features at least 6 functions of roles. So all these roles have to function together well enough, and so you have to really build up the one-stop shop step by step. So you really have to, and Christoph was telling about it, you really have to work on the engagements between the market actors and especially the contractors. And please do not expect miracles. One-stop shop it takes a lot of time to get a sustainable business case. For us, at least 5 years. And it cost, for example, in Groningen, an average of 300,000 euros to help us get over the gap. So no way you can start from scratch with a sustainable business case. At least not at this moment, because at this moment, a lot of customers, they're just looking for solar power, insulation, but they're not looking yet for the total package. And, but that will change fastly, because in the Netherlands, in a couple of years, a lot of municipalities will stop with the gas supply. Well, that's my story. Thank you for listening. You may always send me an email with further questions, and I will seek contact with Gonzalo if I gave the right answer to him. Thank you very much. Back to Jana.
Thank you very much, Marco. Yes, so this is time for your questions now. Please ask the questions via chat. And while waiting for your questions, although I see that Gonzalo had to leave and maybe we can answer to him by email, there was one interesting question about what happens if the energy savings are not achieved, and after energy renovation project, the house or homeowner is spending even more energy than before, which is actually the situation that occurs apparently frequently in the southern countries, where people are not using the heating system or they do not turn it on, and after the renovation they spend more energy than before. They speak more about the quality of the renovation and the comfort for homeowner, but they cannot always guarantee that the energy savings are being achieved. Do you have, Marco, maybe similar situation in the Netherlands? Does it happen? Because I know that you also do the quality check after the renovation and you monitor the energy savings. And are the energy savings important in your calculations, for example, when you convince homeowners to take action?
In our business model, of course, we calculate the savings and we talk about it and we check if our products work. But our business model is not based on the guarantee of the savings. There are other one-stop shops in the Netherlands. They are starting up, and they are primarily built around the guarantee of the savings. Their products or their proposals are approximately 15-20% more expensive, of course, because they have more overhead. But they will have a totally different group of customers. So you see different business models. Some people don't need the guarantee. They know that there's always a part of themselves who have influence on the products. So you see different business models arise.
Mm-hmm. For example, in the French one-stop shops that have been set up in France, the fact that there are energy savings and then people or the municipalities who are running the one-stop shop can recover these energy certificates, or which are called sometimes white certificates, it's a pretty important factor in their business plan, in their business model, in financing of home renovation. So yeah, it can be the situation can be different from one country to another. If there are any questions, yes, Christoph, would you like to compliment?
Can I add on this same point on energy savings? Yes. I think, in addition to what you just said, It's obviously very important. We are targeting energy savings and all action to mitigate climate change. But in this particular context, energy savings and in the question was also seen as a selling argument or a promise that was not fulfilled. And that can lead indeed to a problem. But that's also why it may be useful to have a broader picture and not deal with only energy savings, but consider rather quality insurance. So quality in a broader sense. Obviously, part of the quality would be the energy savings that are effectively achieved, but also how you did take into account the other preoccupation of the homeowner, or what type of services did you propose, and what was the quality and the perceived quality of this service of the services that you've given. Did you answer all the needs of the homeowners, so not only savings, but also all the potential needs that they had in their home, and in the end justified the action from their perspective? And also what is important is the follow-up. So who is responsible? In case of a very fragmented offer, normally you will have difficulties finding who is actually responsible of your lack of performance. And nobody will answer. And I think this point is important. So just even if you don't meet the energy savings, just having the possibility to have a single number to call and someone who feels responsible for taking action and corrective action to to and is responsible in front of homeowners, I think is also interesting. So not only energy savings, but quality insurance as a whole.
Thank you, Christoph. While we are waiting maybe for some questions from participants, I would like to ask both of you like who is actually the right target group for the Horizon 2020 call for proposals, but also for anybody who would like to develop a one-stop shop. Because Marco, you mentioned several like different models. It can be a public-private partnership. The one-stop shop can be 100% public, as it's the case in some cases in France. Or it can be, Christoph, you mentioned that you had a consortium that was composed of private partners. So for those who are starting developing their one-stop shops, what kind of models would you recommend to consider, at least in the beginning?
If I can start, I mean, targeted by this topic, it's whomever makes sense. I mean, we are quite open. The eligibility criterions are quite wide. So it can be either a private entity, a public entity, a consortium, a local consortium, a transnational consortium is also eligible. But as I said, it may make more sense to have a local consortium. And in the end, it's whomever makes sense and convincingly demonstrate in the proposal that they can implement the services that are proposed. But it can be one single entity. It can be. I gave two examples from the ones selected last year. One is driven by the city of Vienna with a strong public leadership. On the second proposal, even if there are public partners and even a public coordinator, you can feel that there is also quite a privately driven approach. And both of them are perfectly fine. We are in the way of experimenting whatever makes sense in the local market.
Thank you. Marco, would you also like to answer?
Well, I think you should always aim for a model which don't need support by the government, of course. But that still could be, you could choose then two models. You can choose the model totally 100% privately owned. But lately you see in the Netherlands also models which are owned by people themselves. I don't have not much knowledge about those models, but I see them occurring. But to answer your question, I think you should always aim to get a model which, in our case, ends after 3-4 years without support of the government.
Thank you very much.
If I can add on this, one of the requirements in the call for proposal is actually to have this perspective in mind, the perspective to reach at some point an economic equilibrium. So obviously we are we are supporting and providing public subsidies for you to develop your services, and there is maybe a possibility that you still need some subsidies of some kind after even the Horizon 2020 support is finished. But you should have in mind that at some point you need to reach some kind of equilibrium and be able to function even without public support to cover your running costs. That doesn't mean that there will not be subsidies to improve the profitability of some energy efficiency measures to the benefit of homeowners, but for the structure in itself, the one-stop, you should have the kind of mindset that at some point you should also operate and function without. Without our support, support is limited in time anyway. But at some point to be able to provide the services in your own.
Yeah, maybe also I would like to emphasize that because maybe among the participants are many cities, regions, or energy agencies who are also signatory of the Covenant of Mayors. And through the Covenant of Mayors, cities commit to achieve their energy and climate objectives that are quite ambitious. And their Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan actually includes also private residential buildings. And also until now, cities focus maybe more on public buildings because they have direct control over them. More and more start to think about the private residential buildings as well because they represent at least 30% of CO2 emissions on their territory, which is really, really big. And so also through the Innovate project, we are learning that local and regional authorities play a very important role as coordinators or initiators of such one-stop shops, and especially in the places where the market is not yet mature enough and where the local authorities has to start and experiment and maybe invest also in the beginning before they can pass the relay to the private sector. So to bring all these actors together, start the discussions, create trust and so on, the cities and regions play a very important role from our experience. I see that there are not other questions coming, so maybe Marco and Christoph, if you would like to say maybe the last words or last recommendations, maybe if you have forgotten to say something very important that comes to your mind now as a recommendation for cities and regions who would like to develop such one-stop shops, and then we will finish the webinar.
I don't know if you want to start. Yeah, maybe.
Christoph?
Go on. Yeah. Well, maybe I start then. Yeah, no. Well, thanks a lot for your attendance. Thanks a lot to Energy Cities for the invitation and the opportunity to discuss directly this topic. I think it's an important one. It's a complex one. That's also why we provide support and so don't be too afraid of trying something. It's actually the last opportunity. The call will not be open next year, so it's this year in September, or it's too late for this financial period anyway. And so don't be too afraid. Try to build whatever makes sense in your local context, and try to be convincing in your local idea. It doesn't need to be. Innovation is always analyzed in your local circumstances. So to explain very well where you're starting from, where you want to go, and why you need support, it is fully receivable. So don't be too afraid. There is 10 million this year for projects, so that give enough room for quite a number of very interesting initiatives to be selected. If you have question after the webinar, feel free to send question to the functional mailbox that is mentioned here, and I will be happy to answer them. We will have another webinar on Tuesday, organized by the ERSME. I gave the link in one of my slides. If you want to join, feel free to attend. And thanks again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Christophe. Marco, any last remarks or recommendations?
No, not really, but only I think people really need one-stop shops with excellent customer experience. They need it in this market, so I would only say go for it.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, I would also like to thank you, both of you, for your time and excellent presentations, and to all the participants for their time too. And if you would like to know more about integrated home renovation services and one-stop shop concept, in the framework of the Innovate project, we are organizing a capacity building workshop on 19 June in Brussels during the European Sustainable Energy Week. And you're very welcome to join us. We will discuss these things much more in details, and it will be a real training where we can also work on your case, so that you can also get ready maybe for the call that was mentioned by Christophe. This webinar was recorded, and the presentations will be available also on the Covenant of Mayors website. So thank you very much to all again, and good luck with the project proposals and your future one-stop shops. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.